Hi, this is Christine Dabo. I was asked by Jen and Jules over at Up All Night Romance if I would give them an interview, and rather than do it in the typical fashion of simply typing out my answers and answering their questions, I thought it might be fun to do something here on YouTube. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to read their question and then I'm going to do my best to answer it and not sound like a complete dork on the internet. So their first question was if I could introduce myself and tell you a little bit about why I decided to write erotic romance. So my name is Christine Dabo. I've been published for 5 years. My first book came out with Elora's Cave. It was The Bond That Ties Us. And what decision did I make to write erotic romance? Well, I can't say that I set out to do that, actually. I started to write a science fiction romance. One of my first loves is science fiction, and as I got going with it, the story kind of evolved into an erotic romance. I was very fortunate that my editor over at Elora's Cave saw some potential in the raw material. I ended up doing a lot of edits, adding a lot more sex, which is kind of funny now when I stop and think back over my career, but it turned out to be a very exciting opportunity for me, and I really began to appreciate the fact that I love being able to show how characters change and grow through the intimate act of having sex with somebody with whom they love. It really adds another dimension to what you can do with a character, and it gives you another opportunity as a writer to really explore the internal issues that a lot of these people are having. So as I got going with it, I got hooked. I really like being able to take a person and you start off very normal on the surface. They look, they're your everyday person. But then once you get them behind closed doors, a lot of us are not as normal as we like to think we are. And everything can kind of fall apart. So I like being able to put my characters through that. And I haven't looked back since. I love writing erotic romance. I probably will always write erotic romance, even if I branch out into other areas. I get a lot of enjoyment from that. Plus, it's smutty and I like reading smutty stuff. Their next question is, what sparked the idea for your long shot series? This one is kind of different for me. Usually I get a lot of my ideas from talking to people, or I'll have something in a dream, or somebody will say something in a conversation, or I'll hear a line in a movie and it just kind of sparks an idea. I'm like, oh, it'd be cool if I did this. But I wanted to actually write 3 interconnected stories. And I had the idea for book 3 first, which was Ian's story, Pulled Long. I kept having this sort of vision of a guy in a coffee shop, customer coming in, and at the time I actually envisioned it being a woman, and them flirting over the course of a series of books. Well, you have to have the series of books before you can get to that one. So then I backtracked and I started asking myself, what if? What if this guy was the owner of the coffee shop? Okay, I can do that. What if he was the younger brother of 2 older sisters? Okay, I can do that. So then Paige and Sadie's story started to take shape. A lot of the plotting for this book actually happened in car drives between where I live and Toronto. For my Toronto romance writer meetings, I would go with my good friend J.K. Coy, and we drive together, and I'd sit in the car and I'd be, so I have this idea. And then she usually kind of giggles, and it kind of goes from there. So we hash ideas back and forth, and I'd say, well, what if I did this? And she'd be like, no. Well, what if I did this? Okay, yeah, you can do that. So then I would go off and I would write my first draft. The long shot series was very quick when it came. Once I got the ideas for who these characters were, it was very fast and furious. I started the book actually for NaNoWriMo. For those of you who are not familiar, that is National Novel Writing Month. I do it every November. I don't always win, but I always do it because it gives me forced focus. And as a result, I'm able to kind of go and just put all my ideas out there on the computer. So this was actually a NaNoWriMo book. I wrote Paige and Sadie's story in not in the order that they appeared. I did Paige's first, then I did Sadie's. And as a result, I was almost done. I got started on Ian's story by the end of December. I went, oh, I really like this. And I finished up the entire book, all 3 of the books in, I think it was 6 weeks. It was right before Christmas. And I did my edits. And then I was very fortunate. There was a contest on Savvy Authors. They had a pitch session with the editors at Carena Press. I had to do it in 3 lines, pitch 3 novellas, connected, erotic romance in 3 lines. And somehow my editor, Deb Nemeth, she was great, and she said, yes, I'd like to have this, and the rest is kind of history from there. So 6 weeks, bunch of revisions, and we have the Long Shot series. How do you do research for the books that you write? I'm not going to go into a long history of my sexual escapades, but let's just say that there is research involved. I'm not as kinky as some of my characters are, so that does require me to actually go onto some very unique websites and do some research into what a lot of these things are. What I find funny is if I do ever die, somebody has to come in and please delete my internet history, because it would just terrify many, many people. As a result, I have some unique experience with some of these things. I do go to talk to people who are part of the lifestyle. I have friends who are in the lifestyle. I've gone to the Toronto Sex Show, which if you are in the Toronto area or in any of the areas that it travels across Canada, it's a great opportunity to go talk to people, try a few things out. You can see if you're into it, not into it. If you want to play with the idea of being into it, it's a lot of fun. And the people there are phenomenal. You can get harnesses and take them apart and go, how does this work? And try it on and all sorts of fun things. So yes, I do research. You can't get away from research as a writer. I don't care what it is you're doing, or it could be outer space stuff. You still have to have a certain amount of research so that you make sense what you're writing and what you're doing. So yeah, I had to do research on coffee, which for me is really not much of a hardship, because I love my coffee. So yes, lots of research, lots of fun. I get usually asked some interesting questions from people when I see them. They go, oh, so what do you write? BDSM, it's fun. To date, what has been the most difficult book for me to write? That would have to be, in all honesty, Josh's book, which is called Calling the Shots. It's coming out in October 8th, 2012. It was probably the most challenging one I've written to date, because I didn't have as clear an idea what I wanted to do with him as a character. He was always, and as readers know, he was a bit of a mystery figure. He was there, he was in the background, he was controlling things, but when you have to stop and put a history to this person, what made him who he is? What made him the kind of person who would open up a sex club and want to have that control and help people find their sense of belonging and their sense of self in this type of environment? For me, that required him to have gone through something very traumatic in his past, and I'm really rather mean to Josh in his book. I have really pushed him to do a number of different things, and some people may not like what I do in the book, but trust me, it all works out in the end. So that was really hard, because when I wrote the book originally, I wasn't, as a writer, you always like to think you're doing your best work. And sometimes it takes somebody else who is not as close and connected to these characters to take a step back and go, you can do better. And I was very lucky that Deb, I trust her implicitly, and she said, no, this isn't working. So I went back to the drawing board. I chucked 6 chapters. I cut a character plot line. I changed things around. And as a result, the book is much stronger. I'm incredibly proud of this book and sort of how it turned out, what Josh, Beth, and Oliver have to go through to get their happily ever after. So it was a challenge, but it was worth every hair-pulling, tear-crying, head-banging moment of it. Question number 6. What is the best thing about being a romance writer, and do you have any fears about writing? Oh, best thing about being a romance writer. To me, this is sort of the same question about why do you write romance? For me, the best thing and the reason I write romance is because I believe in happily ever after. It's kind of lame, it's kind of cliche, but quite frankly, there's enough crap going on in the world right now that it's awesome to be able to have control over a story, control over people's fates, fictional or not, and say, everything that's going on, guess what? For once, the good guy is going to win, and you're going to get what you want, and it's going to be okay. And I love that positiveness. There's so much negativity in the world. There's so much just people not having wonderful lives. To be able to write romance, give happy endings, and hopefully give people who are reading these books a little bit of enjoyment, give them a break from all the garbage that's going on in their lives. It's a small thing, but I hope in some small way that I am able to bring some happiness to people, and that's really the best thing that I could ever ask to do in this life. So that's why I write romance, and that's what I think is one of the best things about it. Do I have any fears about writing? Oh, I'm the most insecure writer. Well, I think all writers are to a certain extent, but when you put your stuff out there, you always have that little paranoia, you suck, this is terrible, nobody's gonna like this, oh my God, you should just go back and do whatever. You can't, that's my biggest fear. Not that I can't do it, because I'm at the point now where I know I can do it, but whether or not I can continue to grow and can continue in the future to provide books and stories that people are going to enjoy and that I'm going to also be proud of. So I'm always that, is this the book that's going to suck really hard and everybody goes, you're fake, you shouldn't be doing this. So I try and crush that down. I have my little support group that does help me out, and all of my writer friends who pat me on the head periodically and go, you're being a little irrational, stop. So yes, that's my biggest fear. What are you working on next? Well, I have a couple of things on the go. One's a super secret project, so I'm not going to tell anybody about that. I did just finish writing a 100,000 word steampunk. It's not erotic romance. It is a steampunk romance with a bit of a mystery to it. It's very dark. Right now it's with an agent, so hopefully things go well with that, and that I'll be able to have an agent to push this out and hopefully get it out to some publishers. I'm also working on another erotic romance right now, and I'm hoping that one will go to Carena Press as well. It is another contemporary. It is very quirky. That's the only thing I'm going to say about this one right now. It's a little bit of a he said, she said story. Two people who are at opposite ends of the spectrum, and they get thrust together, whether they like it or not, and they don't like it at first. They don't like each other, in fact, so they have to kind of fight their way through this undercurrent of sexual attraction and the fact that they can't stand each other to work through the problem and save their reputations, because they're going to have to prove that they're not frauds, which is one of the things that I have them going through in this story. Beyond that, I am hoping to do I have another erotic romance planned, and I'm just keeping going full steam ahead. I am now, as some people who follow my blog know, I'm unexpectedly a full-time author, so I'm taking advantage of the fact that I am here and I'm home, and I get to do my job, my dream job, and I am so excited to be doing this, and I love every moment. And in fact, I really do need to say goodbye, because I have to get to work. I have to do some writing this morning. So thank you very much, Jen and Jules, for having me here on your blog. I love the questions, and I hope everybody takes a chance to check out my website if you're interested. It's www.christinedabo.com. And if you also like the Long Shot series, I hope you will check out Calling the Shots, which is coming out on October 8th, 2012. Thank you very much. Bye.